Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of January 9th, 2012. God, I'm still not used to saying that. 2012, oh my God, it's so crazy. I can't believe how fast time flies. As you know, I'm a new dad and I'm super tired. Hopefully it doesn't come across in the video mail. Put a little makeup under my eyes so you can't see the bags. But I'm loving every minute of it, really. It's a joy. As sleep deprived as I am, I'm still loving it. The Ask Video Mail, don't forget, is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one, but I need your question if I'm going to answer it. So please send me your questions. The address to send them to is webmaster@kennyroy.com. I answer all the questions I think will help the most people, but there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's the best way to get the most for your subscription. So please send one in if you haven't already. I got a brand new stream of new questions sent in by people who've never done them before. I guess they were inspired by last week's video mail, so they sent it in. So again, if you haven't sent one in, please do right away. It's a new year. A lot of people have a lot of New Year's resolutions they want to get underway. That means your friends probably are looking for a way to further their education in animation. So please tell them about the referral program here on KennyRoy.com. If you tell a friend and they sign up, you can get 30 days free on the site if they sign up for a 30-day or 60-day subscription, and you get 60 days free if they sign up for a year. So ostensibly, you could get all of your time here on KennyRoy.com for free if you just have a few friends that sign up on KennyRoy.com. So just spread the word if you can. Always can use more members. The more the merrier. It means more activity in the forums, and it also means more variety in the Ask Video Mails. Don't forget, you can also send me your Maya file. If you're just stuck with your Maya file and there's just something wrong, send it to me. I'll take a look. If it's easy to troubleshoot, maybe I'll just send it back to you. But if it's a big issue that I think will help a lot of people to work out, heck, I might make a video mail out of it. So please send me your Maya file if you're having trouble, and just use me. I'm here at your disposal. Just, abuse me. Just send me everything, all your questions, all your problems. I want to hear them, okay? I am doing the Animalia conference. It's more like a workshop or masterclass series. I'm not sure really what to call it. It's basically it's in the Czech Republic in a town called Videomail, which is 120 kilometers outside of Prague, and it's sponsored by the European Education Board, something like that. Anyway, check out animalia.eu, ANOMALIA.eu. Sorry about that. And check it out. Just keep an eye on that webpage because you will be able to sign up for masterclasses. There's some Pixar animators, some Disney animators, of course myself. Lots of cool things to check out, and sign up for a masterclass. And I'll see you in the Czech Republic. That'll be sweet. Let's see, what else? I think that's it. So let's dive right into the video mail question. It's an interesting one. It's a technical one, but it's still pretty good. Let's check it out. Very interesting. Now, the AM rigs are phenomenal. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a more full-featured rig than Bishop from Animation Mentor, really. So you kind of get spoiled a little bit when you're at the school. You're not going to encounter rigs that are so full-featured on the job. Well, you might add a feature studio, probably not in commercials or television, though. So a lot of auto-rigged characters, a lot of rig scripts used, and shortcuts where you have a production schedule and you have deadlines that you have to meet, and it's a lot harder on commercials and television VFX, which is primarily what Arconix does. So this answer is pretty much born of if I ran into this and what do I do in production, pretty much straight up. So rather than try to teach you how to completely reroute the skeleton of the knee so that it can be actually locked down, we're just going to kind of do a little bit of a trick to stick blokes' knees to the ground. And basically what this concept just takes into consideration is the fact that the hips can work against the rotation of the waist when the knees are moving back and forth. Basically, when you have two knees stuck to the ground, it's almost as if you have a platform, and when you tip it over, one of them has to, let's say this is where it's attached, one of them has to come off the ground in order to facilitate that, right? But if you counter rotate the hips outside the waist, then what you get is basically a parallelogram action like this, which keeps the knees on the ground. It introduces on bloke a little bit of counter animation that you have to do in the posing of the spine. That's not a big deal though. That can be handled in a production setting, no problem. You could actually even work it out so that the counter animation was done for you with an expression. We're not going to get into that. And also, bloke spine is a lot different than other spines. So if you have a FK, IK hybrid where you can switch it, or you can switch the object space, you can actually make it so that this doesn't happen at all. So you have a lot of choices. But basically, what we're going to do is we're just going to think smartly about where we're going to put the pivot of this action. We're going to create a locator there. Then we're going to constrain the hips to that locator, or sorry, the waist. And then we're going to make a very simple expression, very simple, like 2 clicks. And you can also do this with driven keys, but we're going to do a very simple expression just to make it so that the hips perfectly one-to-one counter animate to the movement of the movement of the waist. And then after that, we're going to use driven keys to make it so that the knees stay really stuck to that surface in the other axes of rotation. So this is like looking forward, so this would be the rotate Z on the Z axis, but if it leans forward or back, we also want to use the hips to range that. So this is not a solution, this is not the way that you would need to do this if you had a character that spends you know, like 10, 15 shots, you know, on their knees, like maybe shuffling around, crawling around or whatever. Definitely you'd need something a little bit more robust than this. But this is for, let's say you're doing a commercial and the person's like, oh, please God, why? And they fall down on their knees and then go, why? In this shot, this would be perfect for that. So let's just dive in and I'll talk you through what I'm doing. So here's bloke. He's kneeling on this box. Okay, as you can see, nothing to set up right now. So when we move it, you know, the knees come up and whatever. So basically, the first thing that we need to realize is that as we are working with the character, the weight is always going to be on the knees. So this motion is impossible, right? Because the knees have to stay on the ground, so they wouldn't lift up. So the first thing I just want to iterate the importance of knowing how the motion that you're looking for is possible, if at all. And looking at this, he can't do this, right? He just can't do this. Now, what can he do? He can move himself over one of these legs. That's not that hard. Right? So it would be a combination of moving like this and then in the world over onto this knee, right? And then lifting up. But then this knee would probably have to be planted. How would you do that? Well, by rotating the hips down and just re-sticking the knees to the ground. So that's a lot of counter animation. Instead of doing all of that, what we're just going to do is realize that the pivot point of the motion that is possible, dictated by where the weight is anchored, is going to be somewhere between the knees. Okay, so we're just going to create first a locator. Okay, and this locator is just going to be between his knees. All right. That should do. All right. Not sure if you can see that. Maybe I should change the color. Can you change the color of a locator? I don't even know. Locator shape. Object display, drawing overrides, color. See if we can make it yellow. or green. Yeah, cool. All right. I've never changed the color of a locator before. Okay. So this is the new pivot point of the waist. Why? Again, because it's basically kind of the average of the two pivots of the knees. All right, so we're almost done actually. So just to select that locator, select the waist, and go constrain parent. All right. Now, basically, this motion is much more representative of the kind of motion that is possible in the hips. Basically, that rotation over, but it's not just rotating, is it? The hips are, or the waist rather, is actually translating as well. So you're getting that translation and that rotation. And hopefully what you're starting to realize is that those two have to go hand in hand if the knees are anchored on the box right here. Or you'll see in just a second. We're literally almost done. So if we bring them over here and then try to fix the rotation in the hips to make it so that the knees are still stuck to the ground, what we notice is that it's almost completely, perfectly opposite to the rotation that's in this locator. So let's just set that up. Very simple. Just go to Window, Animation Editors, and then Expression Editor. And it automatically loads up whatever object you have. You can actually make it so that it doesn't do that. But anyway, so we have, let's just make the locator rotate Z. Okay, so we have this right here, and sometimes it's nice to actually just copy and paste what you're trying to make, right? So anyway, I'm going to select the hips, and its rotate Z, okay, is equal to, just going to paste it down here. All right, so the below pelvis control rotate Z is equal to, just going to go -1 times locator 1 rotate Z. And all you have to do is hit create, and boom, it already creates that expression. All right, so now that expression has been created on this this control. There's the expression. It added it as an input. And now let's just see what happens. There we go. So now we're getting the motion that kind of dictates the weight that has to be planted on the ground. Hope this is coming across here. Now, same thing with moving backwards and forwards. His knees are kind of, pretty well anchored, all right? But if we want to move it backwards and forwards, then what we need to do is just counter animate, and a driven key will work perfectly for this. So let's just set that up really quickly. Oops. So you go to Animate, Set Driven Key, Set, all right? With the locator selected, hit Load Driver, okay? And now let's just do one channel kind of at a time for the driver. So Translate Z is the driving channel, and then the hips, Load Driven, we'll load it into the driven, and then it's Translate X, Y, and Z. We're going to be driven by the locator Translate Z, okay? So let's just hit key, and what that'll do is it'll set basically the starting position, and then let's just move this backwards. And then kind of counter animate that right there, hit key, all right? Also move this forwards, and then counter animate that. Okay, so now, as you can see, when we move him, and we can adjust this, when we move him back and forth, which just gives us a little bit of movement in the upper torso because this is being locked down right here, he actually stays put. Okay. which is kind of cool. And now the rotation. As you can see, it's working pretty well in almost all directions. Okay? Now, of course, this does introduce in the upper body, introduces some counter animation. I mean, you're not going to be able to just get away with posing it and then locking this down and then you're done. So you do need to always be aware, especially when you're working in a production setting where other people might take a look at your Maya scene or might have to work, or maybe it's like, hey, I need that rig as well for my shot, or whatever it is. Always have to make sure that you're paying very close attention to how the solution you've created might have some idiosyncrasies, I like to call them, some just little things to pay attention to, little things to avoid or to look out for. Okay, so this has a lot of application with television visual effects and creature effects, like I said, and commercials as well. You're probably going to encounter a rig in a feature setting that has some way to probably lock down the knees, or if you don't, you'll probably go to a rigger and ask them, hey, for my shot, can you give me a script or something that I can lock my knees down or whatever. But I do think it's a good point to make, to start thinking about the way that the motion is being created within the body. Meaning when you look at a character who's kneeling and you grab onto his waist like I did and move him back and forth, to think to yourself, well, this is actually not something that's completely impossible. There need to be a weight shift, there need to be some rotation and some translation at the same time. And where does that come out of? Oh, well, the knees are planted on the ground, so that's where the pivot point is. So when you start thinking in that order, suddenly how to set it up with like maybe a nested constraint system or an expression like I showed you now will become more and more readily apparent to you as you're working. So great question. There isn't one answer. There isn't a Maya trick to just lock knees to the ground, unless you want to reroute the skeleton or actually break open the rig and parent constrain, or somehow constrain or lock the actual joints to a point in space, which introduces a lot more problems than I think than this solution does. This offers a quick way, I would say, and a way that's useful in production. So great question. Please send more. You know I love to have more Ask Videomail questions, and I hope you send one in soon if you haven't already. Don't forget the address to send those questions to is webmaster@kennyroy.com. Please send them in if you haven't. I'm enjoying myself. I hope you are too. Happy 2012. Good luck with your animation, and as always, rock on.